He built a multi-million-dollar brand, made a big exit, and then went all in on Bitcoin, tripling his money in just over a year. But for Mark Lack, success isn't just about stacking wealth. It's about playing the long game. From one of the world's best paintball players to one of the top personal branding experts, Mark has spent his life mastering one thing: how to get ahead before the rest of the world catches up. But here's the twist. After selling his company, Mark faced a life-changing moment that put everything into perspective. Today, we're talking about entrepreneurship, wealth, legacy, and what really matters in the end. Welcome to Coffeez.
What up, brother? It's good to be here, man.
Yeah,
Bringing the energy already.
Yeah, it's a big intro for a young guy. People are like, who is this dude Joe's about to interview?
It's nice to be called young because I have a 3-year-old daughter. Well, she'll be 3 next month, and that makes me feel old.
Kids always make you feel old.
Yes,
indeed. We got 4. We were talking about the kids, and but they bring back your youth, and they keep that vitality and keep you grinding.
For sure.
That's that fire that's inside of you. I could feel it.
It's the vision. We said, pain pushes until the vision pulls, and kids help you get that vision dialed.
Sure. Mark, let's get right into it. Big exit, and Bitcoin, tripled. So
it did, and I put it all in there, so it worked out well. And that right there is a huge lesson, though, right? It's like, for me, that was such a paradigm shift that I spent so many years, over a decade, working hard to make money and to have the financial freedom and the time freedom that comes with that and the choices you can have for your family. And then I got liquidity that was of a good amount that I was able to then have the conviction and education on Bitcoin and its future and put all of the money on Bitcoin at $25,000. And today we just tapped right around 74,000 again. So it's almost 3x. In just over a year since I bought in heavy. I had been buying in since 2020, but I bought in heavy, all the liquidity from that. And that mindset was like, whoa, I just made more money in my whole life doing nothing. My money went to work for me. I didn't have to work for my money. That shift of my money is working for me at such an accelerated rate. And I had educated myself on where to put that money. Not some BS bond or money market fund that's giving me 5.5%, which a lot of my friends were like, my money's all tied up in this. And I was like, dude, you're getting 5%. You know what I mean? I'm up 180%, 200%, 300%. What are you doing? And it was their lack of education reflects their lack of conviction. And for me, I had heard about the proposition that this could be the number one technology in our lifetime, and study it every single day relentlessly, because where else? Have you heard anything else that could be the number one thing of our lifetime? Have you heard anything?
No.
Let me know, because I would want to learn about it. If
we were talking about this is the highest performing asset.
We were just at lunch. We were just at lunch talking about this.
Yeah, ever.
When you hear this is the number one asset and opportunity and technology in our lifetime, bro, a century. This is it.
And I think ever. It's
ever. Right there with the internet, but you couldn't invest in the internet. You could invest in things built on the internet, like companies. Yeah. But this is right there. This is if you could have invested in the internet. And for some reason, when people hear that, they don't just immediately go, maybe I should spend some time learning about this, right? Rather than sound bites off social media or whatever. It's dive in. And I'd never heard anybody tell me this is the thing, dude. And so for me, I was like, whoa. No, and billionaires are saying this is the thing. And so I was like, whoa, I've never heard anybody talk like that before about a thing and an opportunity. And so I was like, I'm going all in on that. And it's paid off. So for people to understand, it's if you find out what that thing is, go all in on it. Take the risk if you're young enough. There's context here, right? I don't know your situation and whatnot. Not financial advice, even though telling people to buy Bitcoin, it's a commodity. You can tell people to buy it. It's not SEC. You don't have to worry about that. I'm not telling you to go buy a stock. I'm telling you to buy a commodity like gold. I can tell people to buy that if I want. So
yeah.
But do your research. But I think when you do your research, you come to the inevitable conclusion that anybody does who's put 100 hours or more studying this. It's going to change everything. And that's why it's about to hit all-time highs, a new all-time high again before the election. And it's going to rip forever with volatility in between. But zoom out, real estate theoretically goes up forever. If you buy pristine real estate, it goes up forever as a reflection of
I think all real estate goes up forever anyways, even if it's pristine or not.
Pristine real estate, because Bitcoin is pristine. So I'm trying to make the comparison that if you buy the best commodity or the best asset or the best real estate, theoretically it should go up forever. and usually at a
So
disproportionate rate.
well, beach real estate is just going to go up every year. It's not going to have that volatility.
Right.
You're comparing it to like prime beach real estate.
Right. But I don't want to turn this into a whole Bitcoin podcast because otherwise
Yeah.
I will right now. I'll turn
No,
this into a whole
we
Bitcoin.
could easily talk about Bitcoin.
I can talk about why it's better than everything.
Yeah. Even pristine beach real estate. I know.
course.
We even got about
So many reasons.
Yeah. But we'll because there's so many podcasts and educational platforms just on Bitcoin. But we did have a huge day today, so
It's
congrats.
still early because I can already hear the people, is it early? Is it still a good time to get in? Because you asked that at lunch today.
Dude,
You
you
said
know
it
what?
today.
I invested in Bitcoin and I lost my tail in 2018, and then I invested.
But see,
again.
had you held it, you'd be up so much. And that's the misconception that people have is
I know.
you're never down if you hold it long enough, just like real estate. You're never down if you hold it long enough. And again, most right now, especially because it's at an all-time high, no one's down. So technically I could say nobody's down right now if they bought and held because we're at an all-time high. So anybody who bought and held at any point in time is theoretically up.
I love I love the chatter about Bitcoin. I love where it's going, and I love that it's continually going up.
And it will.
And for those who are reluctant, and we had this long discussion, it's still early.
It's still early.
All
Michael
the
Saylor says it's year one
Yeah.
of the 10-year gold rush. And so 2024 was the very beginning of what's going to be 10 years of Bitcoin adoption globally, institutions, governments. It'll be in your pension. You'll have it even if you don't know it because it'll be slipped into your pension and your 401k and ETFs. And, like old people will have it and they don't even know they have it because it's just...
They're like, what's Bitcoin?
Yeah, because they're invested in funds that have to have a small allocation to it, or they're invested in the S&P 500. And Michael Saylor's MicroStrategy MSTR is about to get added into that.
Real quick, because I don't want to talk about MSTR, but we mentioned it at lunch today, and it's so people can understand like how MSTR stock
MicroStrategy
has gone up 1,200%
Mhm.
In 1 year.
It's gone up a lot. We could look at the exact numbers.
Yeah, it's 1,300%. You don't need to.
Yeah, okay.
All I know is it had
Gone up ridiculous amounts.
Yeah, a ridiculous amount.
Unbelievable in the last.
And
couple
the
years.
reason why is because he took the CEO took a very unique strategy. Had
Saylor.
Apple or Microsoft done the same strategy and
Microsoft's talking right now in their board meeting
about doing the same
in
thing.
December if they're going to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet instead of just having cash on their reserves, having some Bitcoin on them.
I think that's probably going to pass. If that passes, that's going to change the landscape for everybody.
Because
in Bitcoin.
in January of 2025, so a couple months from now, the FASB accounting laws change, which shows fair value accounting versus intangible accounting. So companies like Microsoft who hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet can show when Bitcoin goes up, they can show it on their quarterly earnings that they had a positive impact on their balance sheet versus right now, you can only show an impairment loss. If Bitcoin goes down, you have to show that you can only show it went down. If Bitcoin went down and then it went up, you have to show the down. You can't show the up. So it's just like, and again, I'm not an accounting expert, but like that's the gist of it. Is there's no reason for a big company to hold it on their balance sheet because you could only show losses, not gains. But in January that changes, and MicroStrategy has shown that his stock went from 2 billion to 54 billion in just a few years. 2 billion to 54 billion market cap in just a few years. From buying Bitcoin, his stock goes up in proportion at a 3x leverage. So if Bitcoin goes up 10%, his stock goes up 30%. And Bitcoin's up like 180% right now. So his stock's
It's just
disproportionately up.
Every company when they compare themselves to MSTR, probably like kicking themselves in the
Even
butt.
Nvidia is down compared to MicroStrategy. MSTR is up
I
more.
know you
than
were talking about MSTR makes Nvidia look like a little runt.
Yes.
Their stock, their
Everyone's
chart.
like, oh, I wish I had bought Nvidia. Well, actually, you wish you bought MSTR because it's up even more. And it still has a lot more to run because it's only at a 50 billion market cap where Nvidia's at 3.6 trillion. So it's not like Nvidia is going to go up another 100x, but MSTR is for sure going to go up a lot. That's not financial advice because that's a SEC, that's stock.
Well, good. Okay. So
we're not saying to buy anything.
We threw a lot at people really, really quick, but
these are the plays you got to make though, because the big thing that people need to understand as we talk about stuff, because like this is like macro, like this dominates all else. Because we can talk about a lot of things, but if the oxygen got sucked out of the room, like nothing else would really matter except getting oxygen. And so like we could talk about a lot of things and it's great, but like the big thing that everybody has to understand is like the oxygen is being sucked out of the room, and what that means as a metaphor is the government is printing more money than they've ever printed in the last 200 years. And they're printing it at such an accelerated rate because the debt keeps piling up so fast and the interest on the debt keeps piling up so fast that inevitably, if you look at other countries that are much smaller than us, but it happens nonetheless, they get into hyperinflation where they have to print so much money just to survive that while you're literally eating lunch, like we just went and had lunch, they're erasing the price of the lunch on a whiteboard and writing a more expensive price before you've even finished the lunch. It costs more. By the time you're finishing the meal, the price has already gone up. That's how fast the inflation's happening. Now for us, we're like, oh yeah, the last 4 years, things cost a lot more since the pandemic. You know what I mean? It's like things cost more because they printed so many trillions of dollars. We actually like really noticed the inflation. Like my grandma is always like, it used to cost me $2 to go to the gas station and now it's $100. That's inflation over 80, 90 years. But if you look, the government printed more money in the last 4 years than they did in the last 200. That's a pretty disproportionate accelerated inflation rate. And so the point is, if they keep doing this, it's like the old adage, the penny that doubles every day. Would you rather get $1 million in cash right now or a penny that doubles every day for 31 days? Most people who haven't heard this before say, I'll take $1 million in cash right now because a penny that doubles every day can't possibly be more than $1 million in 31 days because it's 1 penny, 2 pennies, 4 pennies, 8 pennies. That can't possibly add up to more than $1 million in 31 days. But crazy enough, on day 31, you have roughly $10 million in pennies. $10 million. And the reason is because those last couple days, it's like $2 million, $4 million, $8 million. It's so rapid at the very end. And that's why there's a bunch of great books out there about hyperinflation. Like Parker Lewis talks about gradually and then suddenly, 200 years, and then suddenly, boom, the last 4 just rips your face off. The last 4 years of printing is the same as the last 200. That's hard to wrap your head around. So now you extrapolate the last 4 years over 10, 20 more years at this accelerated rate.
I don't think we're going to have this kind of accelerated rate now, especially with,
But even if it just stays the same,
I'm hoping
which it sort of has to.
Yeah,
it sort of has to just to pay off. Yeah, if you understand unfunded liabilities and the $1.3 trillion we owe just in interest on the debt. It's crazy, dude. I won't get into it because it'll be a whole different conversation that we can go down. But the point is the government's printing more money than they've ever printed before. And that's going to make it more difficult for your typical middle-class consumer to go and buy things. Rent's going to cost more, gas is going to cost more, food's going to cost more, everything's going to cost more. And the rate at which inflation is going up, the cost of goods, the cost of housing, the cost of things that you want to spend your money on. Nobody wants money. They want what it can get you. And so that's why you don't want like money from another government that's like a trillion pesos or whatever, right? Like you may not want that. Or a bajillion lira, like you may not want that. You want US dollars. That's why it's the global reserve currency for now. But you don't earn a percentage. Annual income goes up 3% a year. So average person makes 3% more per year. But the inflation rate is much more than that. Like we were talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like things that you want to buy, like food and a house is going up so fast. That's why they're saying like millennials won't own houses. Like it'll be like the most disproportionate home ownership ever. Like before it was like every baby boomer owns a house.
Yeah.
But now it's like not many of my friends own houses and they'll never be able to afford a house because the house keeps going up 10, 20% a year.
In
but their
California
income,
especially
here. But their income goes up 3% a year, but the house goes up 10% a year. How are you ever going to afford it? You can't afford it now. How are you going to ever afford it? My house doubled in 4 years. Doubled in 4 years. That's not supposed to happen, dude.
Yeah.
So any of my friends who love the neighborhood I lived in, they can't afford it now because it doubled. And their income didn't double in 4 years. No one's income doubled.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, yours did. You got that big exit, put it on Bitcoin, it tripled.
But again, because I invested in something that's going to inflate faster than the rate of the money expansion. Yeah. You see, this is where it's all going. I can get so rich doing nothing because I bought an asset that goes up faster than the monetary expansion rate. Just like my house doubled. Bro, I bought Bitcoin at the same time I bought my house. My Bitcoin's up like 18x. My house is only up 100%. My Bitcoin's up 1,800%. So I probably shouldn't have bought my house. I should have bought more Bitcoin. You see my point? So invest in things that go up in as a reflection of the monetary expansion rate. The more money they print, the more my house will go up.
You know, while you were talking, it just reminds, like, everybody knows the classic way to get rich in America is real estate. It was like, real estate. That mantra or that adage.
That was before Bitcoin.
That was before. Everyone's now like, we will be telling our kids, well, invest in Bitcoin. Like, invest in Bitcoin because it's going to keep going up. And it will probably be the new standard of wealth.
The difference is you can fractionally own it. So somebody can buy $100 worth of Bitcoin, but you can't buy $100 worth of a house.
Yeah. And one day we'll be talking like, I own, like, my dad's going to pass me down one Bitcoin. Like, you're going to be a millionaire.
Yeah, they call it a whole coiner.
Yeah.
And one coin can be fractionalized into 100 million units or Satoshis. So you can own 100 million, fractionalized units of one full coin. So it's like pretty cool. Like there's a dollar and then there's 100 pennies, right? There's a Bitcoin, there's 100 million Satoshis or little units. So owning one full coin will be a really big deal in the future.
Yeah,
Like,
it will be.
Biggest companies in the world, $1 trillion companies, BlackRock, they're all predicting Bitcoin's going to go to millions and millions of dollars for one single Bitcoin.
It's unbelievable.
So at $73,000, that's a pretty good opportunity right there to go up. And they have a lot of interest in it going to that price, and they will personally funnel
Get it to that price.
Yeah, they already are,
because they're gonna just buy it up. Like what BlackRock's doing with real estate here in the U.S. They're like, let's just buy every property
exactly
that we possibly can.
Exactly.
But now they're seeing more light with Bitcoin.
What you have to understand is, if you have a 9-to-5 job and you're watching this, you will never make enough money to afford the things you want in life, unless you're just a really rare decimal of 1% high earner who's in sales or some performance-based job where your income is not a reflection of your time, 9 to 5, but it's a reflection of your output. So in sales, you get paid commission based on closing a result, a sale, right? So not many people, though, work in a performance-based job where their income's attached to their performance. Most people get paid just to show up, and they get paid for their punch in the clock, right? And so those people who get paid to punch the clock will eventually probably have some form of universal basic income or not end up living the life that they're really capable of. And it's not their fault. It's the government is printing more money than they ever have in any generation before us. And so that's why, like, my grandparents owned multiple houses and a motorhome and a boat. And it was like, that's what everybody did back then, right? You had a house and a motorhome and a boat way back then, right? And then my parents, like, easily owned a house. And baby boomers, right? Baby boomers have like $75 trillion in assets. Crazy. But millennials and Gen Z and the ones younger than that, it's going to be tough. They have to compete against AI taking their jobs. And they have to compete against the fact that everything's going to cost so much and companies can't afford to pay them at the rate of which the government's devaluing everything. So like if all of a sudden, like, my house doubles again in 4 years, again it doubles in 4 more years, dude, no one's going to be able to afford that because their income didn't double and then double. It's like, so those people's income.
What's happening. It's just like what's happening in Tokyo. It's happening in
If you look in history, it pretty much always happens. It's the reason why empires collapse, is because at some point there's been enough war and enough, pandemics and enough reasons that the government can justify printing trillions of dollars to save the country. And at this point, they either have to let it collapse, which is why the people, it's going to collapse. It's the worst recession ever. The banks have more outstanding debt than by 700% than they did in 2008. Like, the stats are crazy for why we should have a recession. But it's called a reverse market crash. The government can't let it crash, because if they do, it'll be so bad of a crash. It'll be like Great Depression bad, like worse than 07, 08. Like, you're talking back to the 1920s bad, like a Great Depression bad, like, because we have so much more debt. Like, there wasn't that much debt back then. Like, if you think about how much debt we have, like, it's just so much worse. And so they can't let it collapse. And so what happens? They just keep printing money. It's almost just like if they let it collapse, America's done. So they can't afford for that to happen. So regardless of who's in office, they don't want to be the president that went down with America. So they have to print more money. And again, tying this back to businesses, and why I sold my company was because I knew that I couldn't make enough money every year to keep growing to offset the rate of which the government was going to screw me. The government was going to make my house double in the next 4 or 5 more years, just like it did the last 4 years. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to earn enough money in my business to offset that delta of, wow, they're really screwing me. They're making everything cost more. And when I want to buy that $10 million house, it's going to be that much harder for me. You know what I mean? So I sold my business and I put all the money. I basically reached into the future and grabbed 3 years of net cash, and I got all of it in one day. And then I put all of it on Bitcoin, because I knew what's the asset that's going to go up at a disproportional asymmetrical rate that's going to go up so much higher than the money they're printing. Just like my house doubled in 4 years, but my Bitcoin went up 18 times in those 4 years.
Man.
So I knew that what I just did was I just basically went out and I grabbed like 10 years of cash. I got 3 years from my business, put it on Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin has now basically tripled since I bought it. So that's 3 times 3. So I basically reached into the future and got 9 years of net cash all in 1 year. And Bitcoin's going to double again, and it's going to double again, it's going to double again, it's going to double again. And I'll have made the best trade / investment / bet of my life. Selling my company at the perfect time in 2023, going all in on Bitcoin in 2024. And see you later. Bitcoin's just going to it's going to go all the way up. It's going to have volatility in between, but like if I hold it for 10 years, you'll see me and Bitcoin will be at $1 million, $2 million. And you'll be like, you still holding? And I'll be like, yes.
So I want to talk about, your entry into entrepreneurship and how it all kind of started with becoming one of the world's best paintballers. So how was that journey going from one of the world's best paintballers to becoming like one of the top entrepreneurs?
I'll give you the fast, because now I feel old because it's so long ago, but I'll fly through the bullet points for you, and you can choose to dive into whatever chapter you want. So didn't like school, didn't resonate with me, didn't like the stuff I was being taught, started to resent education, because if someone's just trying to feed you a bunch of BS and you're like, dude, this is not, I don't really give a shit about, are we able to cuss on here? I don't really give a shit about any of this information you're teaching me. And I started to get smart enough where I would ask, what am I ever going to use this for? Right? Like, when am I ever going to use, why am I having to give up so many years of my life to learn this information? And the teachers didn't give me good enough reason. It's almost like a business. Like if somebody's like, well, why do I need to do data enrichment? I'm like, dude, let me tell you. And then they're like, whoa, that was a really good reason. But if I tell you I'm giving my time and my money to come to this school to get an education, and you can't tell me why, a good enough reason why I'm even going to need this education, I'm leaving. This is a business. I'm paying you for a service. And if you can't tell me why I need it, I'm leaving. I'm going somewhere else. And so I started to self-educate myself with people like Tony Robbins and John Assaraf and old school Brian Tracy and Jim Rohn and all the personal development and then marketing and sales, and came to realize self-education was going to be my route, not formal traditional education that most people go through, get a degree, go beg somebody to hire you, get a job that has a fixed income that's now lower than the rate of inflation, and you're just slowly going poor. So I realized self-education was my route. I got super invested into sales and marketing because I was like, I want to get rich. Everybody thinks I'm the stupid kid who doesn't do well in school. So I want to prove them wrong, which is the pain pushes, right? Pain pushed me. Like Michael Jordan was the last guy I picked on the team. And he was like, no, I'm going to be the best. And so everyone's like, you're stupid, bro. You don't do well in school. And I was like, dude, I'm not stupid. I just think this information we're learning is pointless and I don't need to waste my time on it. What's the point of getting an A? And guess what? Literally my entire class doesn't make as much as I do. You know what I mean? It's like, take all the kids that were in my class, none of them all combined together, even if there's one superstar, guaranteed they don't make what I do. All of them combined. And I don't say that in a bragging way. It's just the facts, because I'm still friends with a lot of my friends from college who went to the fancy schools. And some of them actually are employees of my company. Like, it's just funny how it shifts, right? It's like formal education gets you a job. Self-education can give you the life that you want, whatever that looks like for you, because you choose. School, you don't choose. They hand you a textbook. I was like, no, I want to choose what I'm going to learn based on what outcomes I want. And so for me, I would ditch school and I would go listen to audiobooks and read books from Jay Abraham and Tony Robbins. And I don't think we haven't done a Zoom yet, but at my house, my home office, I have a big bookshelf behind me of like 1,000 books, and I've read most of them. That was when I was like full tilt, like college to, before kids, just reading. Like my goal was to try to be like Ty Lopez, a book a week, and it was like, I would just go through so many books, just like obsessed, because I saw the reflection. Better education would give me knowledge to take action that would make me more money. And as soon as I attached more money, which meant choices, freedom, better life, everything, to what I learned, I was like, oh my God, inside these pages is money. Inside these pages is gold. I have to find it. And I'd look at the books as like a game, because I like games. And I would open the book and I'd be like, I got to find the next gold thing that's going to give me that. And the more books you read, the better you get at connecting dots. Like we're talking and it's like, dude, you see the connections between this and this and this. Yeah. And you need a lot of information to be able to connect the dots. Just like if you went and like talked to like some random person on the street who works at Chipotle, they probably wouldn't be able to connect a lot of dots regarding like, the government's going to print enough money. That's causes inflation. It's going to make things go up. Well, I got to find the right assets. Like they're not thinking about connecting. They just go, dude, things cost more. And it's like, dude, you didn't connect the dots. Like, you see what I'm saying? Lack of education. And so when I realized was like the more education I can get, the more I could connect dots. And so then I started to become obsessed with like, what is the education that I need to connect the right dots so that I can get filthy rich in the best way possible, so I can go out and focus on things in a non-transactional way. I don't think God put us on this planet to be slaves to working for money. That's just my belief.
You're absolutely right.
Right?
No, he did not. He put us on this earth to prosper. He put us on this earth to serve.
Right. And so I am now. So But I want to really get to that place where it's like, dude, I don't even think about a transaction. Like, how are we going to do business or make money? Instead, I'm just always coming from a place of like, how can I help you? How can I help people? Right? Like, just shift full philanthropy mode. And I have like my own dollar amount in my head. Like, when I get to this dollar amount, then I can just shift to 100% that. But I'm slowly doing it and slowly doing it and slowly doing it because I see that as the vision. I want to be like full philanthropy, contribution, education. Like Michael Saylor gives all his education away for free, like that. Like I want to like go out and solve like global problems and like get behind things like that, and not be like, well, but I gotta make rent, but I gotta. And I'm already past that. But you get my point. Like it's hard to like, what's the number? Mine's a couple $100 million because I just believe like at a couple $100 million you're done. You know, your philanthropy goals, like, and you also sort of, and maybe it's a limiting belief, but you also sort of need a certain net worth to get in the door with people.
Yeah.
Like Elon Musk's probably not going to like, you know, be like, hey, let's go conquer things together and solve these big issues together. You don't have any money. So you could be an employee, or it's like, hey, I'm going to put $100 million into this project with you. Let's get it done. And he's like, oh, okay. You can come to the table now. And so I also believe sometimes you need to have like the connections and the money to be able to make the big impacts without just being like, dude, you're just an employee at the charity. No, I fund the charity, and that's what makes it go. And so for me, I just feel like everybody should strive to figure out what that vision looks like for them. And for me, my success now, after I have my data enrichment company, I think that's going to be it for me. I think at that point with Bitcoin and the exit, I'll be able to just focus on philanthropy. So
that's awesome. So that's the goal. Completely full on exit and then just do God's work. Love that.
That's perfect summary.
Huh?
Yeah, that's perfect summary.
I mean, and you know what? Because that is at the forefront of your goal.
Yeah.
Like it's going to happen.
Yeah. And the paintball thing was just such a blip in my past, but like it taught me what does it take to be the best. And that mindset of get the best coaches, get the best mentors in paintball, right? Everything. But get the best people. Are, how'd you become the best? It's like, dude, how do you become the best at anything? Get the best mentors, get the best coaches, learn from the people who've already achieved what you want. You're not guessing, how do I get there? Who already got there. So I would just get the best people who already achieved what I wanted in paintball, like the best guys, and then I'd have them as my mentors and my coaches. And it didn't just start there. I had to work my way up, right? I did it for over a decade. And that's usually, I think, what most people do is they underestimate what they can do in a decade and they overestimate what they can do in a year. And so in 1 year, they're like, I'm going to be the best. And then they're not. Like I thought my first year when I started my company, I was going to make $1 million. It took me 5 years. And then it was like, you know, fast. Yeah. But it was like first 5 years before I made $1 million. But I for sure was like 100% guaranteed to my grave, I'm going to make $1 million first year. Didn't. Took 5 years before I made $1 million in a single year. And so, yeah, it's the same formula. Paintball, sports, business. Get the best mentors, get the best coaches, and find people who've already done the thing that you want to do. And I think when you ask most people, they don't have a clear vision on what they want to achieve in their life, and because they don't have that, they don't have navigation, they don't have orientation, they don't know where they're going, so they don't have a coach to get them there.
Now you're not, you know, you're still in a very volatile business. You started off in a really, personal brand development. And you exited. Now, first off, I can imagine what people thought of your business when you said, I'm going to just build the brand business. Like, but what can you think of?
Especially back then, over 10 years ago, it was like
no one even. I mean,
having
even now,
being an influencer and having a personal brand, it meant that you were like it meant that you were broke. Like 10 years ago, if you're like, I'm an influencer, you know, there was no like Kardashians or the Paul brothers. There wasn't like Mr. Beast, right? Like 10 years ago, he made his first video. Like that's the point. And he was broke. And now he's like the man. And so it's just like, that's the example. 10 years ago, I was like, I'm going to do personal branding. And it was definitely like,
you're crazy.
You're crazy.
But you know what? That just speaks to early adoption. Right?
Yeah, that could be a common theme. Yeah, early adoption.
Like now, and this is what your mantra is right now. Here, it's like, be an early adopter of Bitcoin. It's not too late. Be an early adopter of data enrichment. Again, not too late. Not too late. Very early. We were talking about this. Data enrichment is it's like a buzzword now.
Right.
It's at that level where it's like, hey, what do you do? I do data enrichment.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
But it's trending, right? Can you think of like a pivotal moment or like some of the more of the adversity you faced when you started your company, your first company?
Oh man, I told you it took 5 years before I made my first $1 million. And some people might be like, you know, man, like whatever. Like I've been doing my thing for 10 years and haven't made $1 million. But that's a whole rabbit hole we can get into, right? Like you probably don't have a mentor who's already done tens of millions of dollars guiding you, or you're not reading enough books, you're not reading enough education. There's a gap, right?
Yeah.
Or you're just totally in the wrong industry. You're selling the wrong thing. You need to be selling the hot thing that everybody wants right now. You know what I mean? Like you're in the
data enrichment.
You're in the desert and you're selling bread. Everybody wants water, bro. You know what I mean? Like I don't care. It's like no one wants a dry mouth, like a spoonful of cinnamon in the desert. Like, you're like, I want water. And so some businesses, because I did consulting for like 10 years, they're just selling the wrong thing. Like you're just never going to be successful trying to push that up the hill. So you just need to pivot. And I think that's a big lesson for a lot of people is like getting into the right space. But dude, I mean, the failures and lessons from like my first couple years, like I pivoted. The first 3 years, I was trying to do like personal development. I was trying to like teach Tony Robbins stuff. I was really trying to like get people. Actually, it was more like 2 years. I was really trying to teach people because I was studying so much Tony Robbins that I was like, I'm very much, as you can tell from my Bitcoin talk in the beginning, when I become obsessed with something, it just like consumes me. And I think a lot of successful people have that attribute about them is like Grant Cardone wrote the book, like be obsessed or be average, right? Like average people usually don't have obsessions, and I think people who are great, the best at what they do are usually obsessed.
Yeah.
And sometimes for better or worse, that can trickle down and affect other areas of their life, right? It's like, I'm so good at this. I'm the best and I'm so successful. I'm the number one person, but it's affecting other areas of my life because I'm so obsessed with this. I'm not making time for that, and,
that does impact a lot of entrepreneurs, though.
A lot. It's a very common theme.
Yeah. And their relationships with their spouses.
Of course. These are the things I'm talking about, right? Relationships, health, etc. Comes with the switch cost, right? It doesn't have to, but oftentimes you become so obsessed, so focused on this thing myopically. You're like, that's it. Everything else can wait. And then you think, oh, if I just am so good at this, then all the other things will take care of itself. And oftentimes it doesn't. But it's not that being obsessed is a good thing or a bad thing. It's just everything just is. But when I become obsessed with something like Bitcoin, it just consumes me and I can't not talk about it. And for a very long period of my life, that was consuming Tony Robbins and trying to become the best version of myself. And I would just vomit on people like, dude, Tony Robbins, you got to study this stuff. It's the best. Improve you. And I found out people don't really want that. They don't really want to improve themselves. They don't like looking in the mirror and being like, I could be better. They don't want to actually improve themselves. Like if you tell a fat person they're fat, they usually get offended rather than being like, oh, thanks for holding me accountable.
Though,
you know
the people like when you meet people who study Tony Robbins and I don't know if you met John Astaroff.
Of course, John officiated my wedding.
Oh yeah, these people are just obsessed with just self-improvement. He's still obsessed every single day.
Of course.
With self-improvement.
It was amazing to have him be a mentor from books to attending his seminars to having him officiate my wedding.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he came in here and his morning routine is insane, by the way. He does have one of those.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, John does.
Routines.
Yeah. But his kids have also moved out of the house, so
yeah.
Easier.
He has like a really intense morning routine that's very hard to emulate. But he is obsessed with self-improvement. And when I meet, and now that we're in these, entrepreneur circles that we're part of, mastermind circles, like these high performers are absolutely obsessed all day with self-improvement. Like that's all they think about. Morning to night, dusk till dawn. And when you talk to someone like you or, you sense it and you feel it and you feel like you feel the sense of inspiration internally. Like, dude, I got to get better. I'm lagging.
Yeah.
Like just me talking with you, I'm like, I got 9 years on you, 43. I'm like, you're an extreme high performer, and it's inspiring.
Thanks, brother.
And it's inspiring to me to continue to meet people at that level.
It's what I will say, like, that's been a shift for me since last year was, so I sold my company in July, and it was like one of the highest highs because I was like, it's happening. God's giving me all the things that I've prayed for. I was like, I need this extra liquidity now to buy into Bitcoin before the cycle because Bitcoin has cycles and it's all happening. I was like, the prophecy. I was like, it's all happening the way it's supposed to. I get all this money, I can put it on Bitcoin and Bitcoin's going to go up forever. And I got in at 25 and here we're at 74. It's going to just, and I was like, it's all happening. So one of the highest highs, July 2023. Then in August 2023, my mom passed from battling cancer for 3 years. And that just fucked me up. So I went from the highest high to the lowest low And I stayed there for like 6 months. And it was tough because I had to also be a husband and a father.
And you still had, starting your next venture.
Exactly. So I kind of went into like a 6-month like retirement depression. My mom was like the glue, like the foundation, like everything. It wasn't just like, oh, I lost like a family member, because I know not everybody's close with their parents. But that one was just like the queen on the chessboard is the most valuable player on the chessboard, and my mom was that. And so that was tough. I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't want to cry on the podcast, but that was tough. And so for me, that was a huge life moment. And it really gave me perspective that all of this self-improvement stuff and making all this money is really actually lower on the totem pole than I've placed it. And what matters most is your loved ones and your health and great experiences and great memories. And that doesn't cost a lot of money. And that doesn't always require you to be the best. Just be you. And so I live in this weird paradox now where I don't remember who taught me this, but it was like having multiple different like characters that you can shift back and forth between. Like when I'm with my grandma, I'm different than when I'm with the boys, then when I'm with my daughter, then when I'm with my wife, then when I'm doing a podcast. You can shift, right? Yeah. It's okay to shift into different modes. And there's the playful father mode, and then there's like the loving husband mode, and the best friend mode, and the teacher mode, and the spiritual mode. And that spiritual mode for me got rocked in a way that it never had before. And I went through all the different, grieving and depression and, all that. But it taught me something that was so important. And it was just like, we're always, especially on podcasts like this, talking about make the money and be the best version of yourself. But like when that spiritual moment happens in your life, you're not going to give a shit about the money or the self-improvement. And I took 6 months off of focusing on making money, focusing on self-improvement. And it just really anchored that in for me. And in 2018, I got sepsis and almost died. And that was a much smaller version of what I'm referring to, where I was like hospitalized and like that. I couldn't work. I couldn't be around people because I couldn't risk getting any sicker. And so that was like a moment for me that was like, whoa. But the mom one was just like, because I got healthy, so I didn't actually lose anything, right? I got sick and I came right back. It was fine. No problem. But the mom one, I lost something that I'll never get back. And so that was like it taught me, like sepsis taught me some things, almost dying, but like losing my mom was like,
at a young age too.
At a young age. Yeah. And with my daughter being so young and like, see, I want to go there.
Listen, a lot of people, this is a physiological journey on this show because I asked some pretty deep questions.
Yeah. But I wanted to bring that up because I feel like when people listen, we spend a lot of time talking about money and the cool stuff. But I'm telling you right now, like when you really get down to like the lowest level of what matters in your life, like your deathbed, right? Like that's it, dude. Just being with your loved ones, being healthy, and creating great memories and great experiences that you can cherish and hold on to forever. And so for anybody watching, just know that if you have the people that you love, if you're all healthy, and you have the ability to make great memories that don't cost anything, like you're already winning. So I just want like a positive message for everybody right now. It's like, you're already winning if you have that. The making the money and the being your
fun stuff.
That's just the fun stuff. Like God lets us do those other things, but like cherish the health and the memories and the people you have now. And don't get so wrapped up in the money and the this and the that. And so it was tough because like the timing of selling my company, I was so wrapped up in selling it that then when my mom passed, it was just like, I wish I wasn't so wrapped up in selling my company and I could have been, So just to put that out there for people, it's like you're already winning if you have those things.
Love it. Now, this is something I ask parents, because you're a young parent, you only got one kid, but this is something I'm obsessed with. Matter of fact, you'll probably see my kids here soon, but I'm obsessed with teaching my kids grit, because your kids are in this bucket too. You're going to probably have more. They don't come from the adversity that we come from. They're not cut from the same cloth. Mm-hmm. So how are you instilling the same level of grit and tenacity and fortitude that you have? How are you going to instill that in your daughter?
It's a good question, and I talk about it with my wife every night. And I want more education around that, because I don't think I have all the answers because
Listen to the show. I ask that question to every entrepreneur.
Okay. And see, I'm at a point now where I don't pretend to have answers to things.
Yeah.
I used to try to be like, I have to have the answer to everything or people will think I'm stupid. I don't give a fuck anymore. If I have an answer, I'll share it to the best of my ability, but I don't have the answer for that because I only have a 3-year-old and I haven't done it before.
Yeah.
And she's my little princess and I want to spoil her in a way that allows her to know like you have options and choices and you can create that for yourself too when you become an adult. But like finding that balance between like spoiling and giving her opportunities that other people aren't always blessed to have that can allow her to cultivate herself into the best, most confident, healthy, happy version of herself. I don't care if she goes on to become financially successful. I just want her to be happy and to be around people that love her and that she loves and to do something that gives her passion and joy and fulfillment. And I think if I had a son, I might feel different. Yeah. I think if I had a son, I might be like, you need to be the provider and you need to, at least this is what I tell myself, right? If I had a son, I'd be like, you need to go out and you need to be the husband and the rock and the protection of your future family. You know what I mean? Yeah. At least that's what I think. Maybe that's old school mentality.
But it's still an applicable mentality. And maybe some listeners aren't with that.
Because I feel like with a son, I'd be like, yo, you got to take care of yourself. I'm going to be there for you. And I'm going to, be your steward and support. But like with my daughter, I'm like, daddy's always got you. Yeah. Let me just give you some Bitcoin.
You'll always be taken care of.
Yeah. That's what I'm just like, princess, daddy's got you and mommy's got you. Like, here's some Bitcoin. Like you're set for life. You know what I mean? Like, cause in 20 years, when she's an adult, she'll be 23 in 20 years. Bitcoin will be like at price points that sound ridiculous to even say. Yeah. And so
they'll be listening to the show like,
I should have bought, you know what I mean? Yeah.
We were saying 75,000.
But you can always do that. Any Bitcoin video, you go back 5-10 years, and it's been around for 16 on October 31st. So in like 2 days, it's Bitcoin's 16th anniversary of the white paper. So if you go back 4 years, 5 years, you always wish you bought then. So when people watch this in 4 or 5 years for the next cycle where Bitcoin, inevitably rips, you'll be like, I should have bought. Yeah. That's just the loop. And that's the loop that when you recognize it, it's like, you should have always bought the real estate 5 years ago because what does it do? Yeah. It just goes up. And Bitcoin goes up more at a faster accelerated rate than that real estate. And so once you've recognized the pattern, you're like, oh, I should just buy it now. Like that now is the best entry point.
You're right. Just like still real estate, that same logic applies to real estate right now.
Exactly. And you spend all this time dicking around trying to figure out all these other things. When is the best entry point? And when is that?
Right now.
It was now.
Yeah. A couple last questions I have for you. This one's a 3-pronged question. Okay. What is a personal goal that you have for yourself?
Okay.
And a business goal. Well, a personal goal you have for yourself, a family goal that you have for the family, and then a business goal.
Family goal is to do... And it's not like specific to something. Family goal, short term, would be to do like, I have this vision in my head to do this the most epic family vacation, like, I don't know if it's going to be on the beach or if it's going to be like renting out like the biggest cabin ever and just having like the whole family stay, like a 12-bedroom, just like so awesome. And like everybody can be there and just like snowboard, ski, fireplace, hot chocolate, whatever. Just like the whole family, this cozy cabin, lake vibe, whatever. I don't know, right? It's like I have this vision, like I want to do and just cover everything, fly everybody out, pay for everything, just like no stress, just the best, like $100,000, $200,000 vacation, just like bam, just like this epic family vacation. Like, we all have kids now, and like it's such a different dynamic because like you go from like I'm the kid to like now I have kids and they have kids and they have kids. My brother has 2 kids, and it's like such a fun dynamic. So I want to do the most epic family vacation in the next year or two as the kids are just a little bit older and can really enjoy it, because my daughter's turning 3 next month. It's like, it's just there where like 4 and 5, that's kind of where you can like, they're a little bit more of a kid. Personal, it's probably fitness related. I'm on my fitness game right now, trying to just track my macros, eat clean, 95% clean, still let myself enjoy myself, right? Because nothing worse than being like that nut job who's just like so healthy and then gets hit by a car and you're like, oh, you should have had that thing that you really wanted to eat.
Yeah. Should have had the cake.
You're dead,
Life is short. Eat the cake.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like finding that balance between like, all right, I'm going to be like the healthiest and best I've ever been, but also like leaving that little room in there. So it's probably fitness related. I want to drop a little bit lower in body fat and put on a little bit more muscle and keep eating healthy and feeling better and like just optimizing myself and looking into like stem cells and like crazy things to like biohack my body to like the best levels and reverse my age and all that.
I'm on a biohacking routine.
Yes.
Yeah,
so that like just, share whatever you got, bro.
Yeah.
I'm on it.
Same with me. Share whatever you got.
We'll swap notes.
Yeah.
So I would say that's for health. It's personal. Family, it's an epic experience like I was talking about. And then for business, right, that was the other one.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be building this data enrichment business up and then exiting it. And this time exiting a company that gets a larger multiple, because the company that I had sold was an education company, and those only get like 3 to 4x EBITDA.
Yeah.
And so, getting into more SaaS and AI related things around data enrichment, you can get a much, much larger multiple.
20x multiple.
Yeah. So I got a 3.3x on my company. So to get a 20x is like, poof.
Yeah.
Same effort and energy. And that's my point. You build a restaurant, it's going to get like maybe a 1x multiple.
Yeah.
Or you build a SaaS company, it's going to get like a 12 to 20x multiple. And where are you going to spend your effort and energy? That's right. The restaurant business at some point is going to get price gouged and destroyed. Labor laws, all the BS, right?
Strikes, cost of
God
went up.
Exactly. And then what do? You shut it down.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to buy it, and it's gone. SaaS, pump that baby up for 3 to 5 years, have a big exit, take that cash, put it on Bitcoin, or put it on something else that's going to go up.
Or Ethereum,
asymmetrical. So,
all right,
those would be my things, bro.
Love it. Last question. I end the show with this question every single time.
I'm ready.
When you're in front of the pearly gates,
okay,
what do you think God's going to tell you?
I obviously would have to think about it from age 34, which would be different if I'm able to, God willing, live out what I believe could be a much longer life. That answer might be different if I'm able to live that far. But right now, that would be tough, because my answer, I feel like there's so much I'm missing. So God could be like, you missed out on so much. But I try not to overthink it. I think God would say, I'm proud of you. Yeah. Because I think deep down inside, I know that when I do feel led by God to do something, I'll do anything. Like if I do feel like God's telling me to do something, it's like nothing's going to stop me. I'm going to do that. Which means I'm one of his stewards.
Yeah, and the Holy Spirit drives your decisions.
Exactly. So he knows that although I have my own free will to make my own choices, that I'm free to what he wants me to do. And therefore, I'm God-led, and if he has something for me to do as a mission, which is why my ultimate goal in life is to get to a point where I believe, and I know this is a limiting belief, and we can go down the whole thing of, you should be doing it now. And it's like, okay, but in my head, I have this story that when I get to a certain financial level, everything in my life can shift to philanthropy. I've always been a very giving contribution person, focused on like helping others, and just always feels so good to give, you know, especially once you've filled your cup up so much. Like I know that's one of my favorite quotes. I'm butchering it completely, but there's like a billionaire and he's like, so rich, but he just never has enough. And then there's this other guy and he says to the billionaire, the billionaire says to him, like, what's your goals and and what about this? And the guy says, well, I have something that you'll never have, Mr. Billionaire. I have enough. And I totally butchered it, but I think I landed the point that some people, no matter how successful they are, they just never have enough. And I feel like I definitely already have enough. So I'm going to force myself to be even more philanthropic and giving more in the ways that I know that I'm able to. But yeah, I feel like, just philanthropy is my ultimate goal, and I feel like God would tell me he's proud of me because he knows that like my heart's in the right place, and like ultimately that's what I want. Is I just want to be able to help people and give back to people, which is why I love doing education. I took a while off of doing podcasts. Probably have a little bit better example of why I haven't done podcasts in a while. But I'm back. I'm going to be going on more podcasts now. I've done over 2,000 interviews, but 1,000 podcasts. So I've done 3,000 total on both sides of the table as a host and as a guest. So I'll be doing more podcasts because I love giving back, contributing. And so hopefully something I said landed with somebody today that resonates. And I always try to remind myself, as long as one person's life can be impacted, like truly impacted, not like, oh, that was good, I feel good, and then like they never do anything. But if one person heard something from my episode and they go out and do something, and then they hit me up on Instagram and they say, yo, that was incredible. Your story really touched me. And like, here's what I'm going to do, or here's how I took action. Or they come back to me in 10 years and say, dude, I bought Bitcoin from your freaking thing and it went up so much. You know,
Changed my life.
Changed my life. And so yes, just something that, anything.
Yeah, I always think like that too. As long as I'm touching one person, I don't care if they get 200,000 views,
right,
500,000 views.
Yeah.
As long as it hits somebody. And there was so many nuggets of good wisdom on this show, and that's why I like to interview the most wise people I like to learn from. And you did get that one person, because that one person is me. So we won. Right now, I'm taking action. Let's go. And you saw how fast I took action from our lunch, and we're taking more action after this lunch.
Amen,
after
bro.
this podcast. So this tries to be the focus of the show is to serve. That's the whole point of what I do as a profession. That's the point of the show. And from there, my spiritual mentor told me, as long as we do God's work, God always does our work. So that's how I'm led.
Amen, bro.
All right, bro. It was a pleasure. Mark Lack. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. See y'all next week.